Hello, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new on here, welcome to the tribe. And as you can tell already from the title, today I'll be going over how I study for the Mpje boards and basically what I did to pass the exam. Okay, disclaimer, none of these websites or apps or books that I'll be referencing have paid me to do this. I am basically strictly stating what I did to aid me pass the exams. All right, so hopefully somebody out there watching this will benefit from it. Keep watching. So you probably stumble over this video after watching a whole bunch of other videos trying to figure out how to study for this exam. Trust me, I did the same thing. um the law exam, in my opinion, is harder than NAPLEX. The reason as to why is you actually don't know where to start from, right? Yes, we did a law course. I'm not going to mention my school, but the course was basically, it wasn't helpful, all right? And honestly speaking, I don't know how one can teach law to another person. It's something that you either memorize or you just go out there and read on your own. So I'll be pointing out some of the apps that I use and how I study for it. All right, so stay tuned. So the first thing I would recommend is go to the App Store and download Mpje New York. And also, depending on your state, they have other states, so Mpje Pennsylvania, name it. So just look up Mpje and then you add your state to it. So this app comes with 300 questions, and 100 of those questions are federal law and then 200 of them are New York law. So what I did was every day I will go over the questions. So it comes in the word bank, which I'm about to show you a sample next. So here's a sample question. So it comes in a word bank, as I mentioned before. So it's 200 questions for the New York State law. So it's 15 questions and it's 4 parts to that. So every single day I did 50 of those questions. I went over those questions over and over again, trying to answer them. And then whichever you get wrong, it will give you an explanation as to why that answer is wrong. All right. So then I did those, and then I did the federal questions as well. And then questions that showed up that I wanted a more in-depth explanation to, I visited the New York State law or New York State pharmacy law website, which I'll be showing next. So here is the website that I mentioned before, the New York State education department.gov or nysed.gov, and then you go to the Office of Professions and look up pharmacy and then education law. Everything that you need to know about pharmacy law is already here. Frankly, I believe all these books that are currently being sold on Amazon and all these other websites get their information off this website right here. All the laws pertaining to pharmacy in New York State is already here. Now, the problem with this website is how it's organized. If you're a scatterbrain like I am, you're probably looking at this like, this is a lot of information. How am I going to read all of this, which is true. Honestly, who have time to read all of this? It's quite tedious. But then consider taking your exam either once or taking it 3 or 4 times. So I would rather take my chance and go through this tedious list of information rather than sit for the Mpje exam ever again. So this is what I did. I did the question banks, and then based on the questions that were asked, I came on this website and then read more in depth about what the laws and what information was necessary or pertains to that question. Okay. Another source of information that I use to study. So this book, in my opinion, was what I meant by most of the books that's out there basically went on the .gov website and sum up what you need to know and put it in a book. This book is a great example of that. In my opinion, it covered the bulk of the information that you need to know. But then there were some laws that I came across. I forgot which one it was, that the book, at least the version that I had, the law has been outdated, and I was studying its information that was not like necessarily right. So Again, you should read this if this is you want something to carry about, like a book, something, to help you. And it is quite light too. It's about like, I think about 56 or 58 pages worth of literature, and it's like a size 10 or 12 font, so you can carry it about, and it's easy to just glance through. And then it's organized by federal and New York state law. Okay, so then you are able to differentiate what is federal and what's New York state law. All right, so this was one of the resources that I used. It was also helpful, but I would not solely rely on this, because depending on the version that you have, like the one I had, there was some information that was outdated. All right. So another law book that I ended up purchasing is this pharmacy law that I came across on Amazon. It had really good reviews, and people who had used it to study had a lot of good things to say. Now, that wasn't until I started going over the questions in the book that I realized that they were the exact same questions that was on the app, right? Mind you, the app is literally, I think, like $3.99 or $5. Don't quote me on it. But this book right here was almost $30. So, in my opinion, I'm not here to bash anybody's business, but it was the same questions. Unless you want a paperback book to carry around, the app already had the same questions with a even better explanation than this book did. So, in my opinion, it depends on the individual. There are people who don't like to look at the screen. So if that's the route that you want to do, or you can purchase the book. But I wouldn't recommend it, because the questions that was in here was the same as the app. All right. So I just pointed out because I just wanted to compound everything that I use, so you would know how I study for it, basically. So this is optional. You can either get the book or use the app, but save your money, get the app, and disregard the book. All right. And another study material that I used, or website that I used, was the pharmacy exam. It's called Pharm RX. I should look up the logo for you guys. I'll probably post it after this one. But a friend of mine had already purchased the question bank. Now, this one, unlike the RX MPJE, the MPJE law app that I downloaded, had other questions, like different questions in comparison to the app. So there were like questions that I came across on here that I had not seen on the app, that made me want to like further dig into the law information. So I was basically like exploring other parts of the New York law that I had not regarded based on the questionnaires that I had on the app. So to sum it up, this was a really good source of information. I could honestly speak, there were like 4 questions that showed up on my exam that were literally questions that I had seen on here that was worded differently, basically. So this app, or this website, you can download it. Personally, that's why I will always recommend everybody to befriend upperclassmen. If you know an upperclassman, it's good to ask them how they study. So a very good upperclassman friend of mine recommended this, and she even gave me her password to use the questionnaire that was on there. So kudos to her. I'm highly grateful, and I'm glad I used it, because this was really, really, really helpful. All right. So last but not the least, the health.ny.gov website. Now, this website covers a lot of the controlled substance in New York State. And as you already know, federal and state laws differ a lot. And as always, as taught in school, I don't know about your school, but as I was taught, you always go with the stricter laws. And most of the time, the state laws tend to be more stricter than the federal law, at least in the case of New York State, at least. So there are a few things that I think you should know as well. So the exam comes in either pick all that applies or the K-type question. Those are the K-type questions. Also, fill in the blank. And then what else? There wasn't a lot. There was a few questions in regards to how to handle hazardous waste. Okay, now most of the law and the questionnaires that I went over had no questions on hazardous waste. So you could only imagine my expression when I saw a few of those questions. I'm like, oh my God. But thank God for, compounding and stuff. So we had already gone over some of the hazardous information. So if you are not that well versed about how to handle hazardous waste and excuse me, and like how to get rid of like uncle meds and all that fun stuff that we learn about and probably wouldn't use. But all that stuff that you slept through, so go over those as well. And then what else will be helpful for you guys? I'm trying to crack my brain. I'm just happy that I've passed this crap and I don't have to deal with it. In my opinion, this was harder than NAPLEX. Way harder than NAPLEX. But what else? What else do you need to know? Oh yeah, know who can prescribe and who cannot prescribe in the state of New York. Know how to handle transfers. So in the state of New York, you can only transfer one script of non-control at a time. All right. So these are laws that if you work in the community setting, you probably are more familiar with. Personally, most of my pharmacy experience was in the hospital setting, even prior to even going to rotations. So there are things that I came across in regards to the law that was quite foreign to me. So I would recommend, if you work in the pharmacy community setting and you're like an intern or whatever, ask your preceptor, whoever works with you. Most of the pharmacists, they are very welcome, or at least from my experience, are very nice and welcoming, and sometimes they love to hear the kind of questions that you have in regards to pharmacy. All right, so this is what I did, and this is what helped me pass the exam. And if you take it more, I passed my law exam on the third try, right? So first time wasn't a charm. You need a 75 and above to pass. I was scoring like 73 and 74. I was always at that cusp. You can already imagine how pissed off I was at the 74. Listen, I'm not even going to talk about it. But then I took it a third time, doing everything that I had mentioned right now. And guess what your girl got? I'm not saying it, but it was not in the 70 range. It was in the 80 range, and I was very proud of myself. Thank you very much. But anyway, so do this, and hopefully this will be helpful to somebody out there, okay? And good luck on your exams. If you're in New York State, good luck on part 1, 2, and 3. I will be doing other series going over the other exams as well. And hopefully this was helpful for somebody out there, okay? Thank you, and thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye. I almost forgot to add sorry, but one last thing before we wrap this whole thing up is I actually took the practice law exam that is offered by the NABP like 2 days prior to going to take the exam. So it was a good morale booster for me because I scored like a 79 on it. So I was like, okay, if push comes to shove, at least I know I'll get over a 75 this time around. So if you're somebody that need like some kind of morale to prior to going into the exam, I recommend you take that exam either like a few or like a week prior to your exam date. And I also forgot, I studied for, well, the first time I wasn't thinking this exam was going to be that hard, so I paid like about 3 weeks, spent 3 weeks time just studying on it. But then when I failed it, I had ample amount of time to go over the exam again. So I'll recommend like about 4 to 5 weeks thoroughly going over exam questions and going over the laws and all that stuff. So that will be enough time for you to do all of that. Okay, I just came back to say that, and thank you for watching. Tune in for more videos. Bye bye.